What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV. Welcome back to another episode of Premier League predictions. But before we get into our predictions, we've still got two reviews to do on the two midweek games. At the moment, the scores are 223 to 233. He has cut the gap to only 10 points. And the way the scoring works, it's 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result, star man as well, which is 5 points for a goal, 3 points for an assist. No star man for the midweek games. But let's get into Arsenal. Everton finished 4-0 to Arsenal on the day. Sim went 3-0, so close to that 5-pointer. I went 2-0. And we were on the way to Sheffield, during the game, so I didn't get to watch the whole game in the entirety, but for what I saw, I thought maybe Everton gave it a good go for the first 10-20 minutes, but once that goal went in from Arsenal, one-way traffic and a complete battering.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I predicted. I think as long as it's 0-0, Everton will have that, will keep compact and be tight and be hard to break down. But as soon as they concede, the floodgates will open. They conceded on 40, and I think by the hour, it was 3-0 game over. So Arsenal, big result for them after that's now 3 wins in a row after they went 3 wins without a win. So they're back on track. Martinelli's back on form. So good going for Arsenal, I guess. Not great to watch, but for us, but there you go. They're 4-0 up. But from Everton's point of view, I mean, it's now 3 losses and 2 wins for Dyche after 5 games. So he started really well with a win against Arsenal, but now it's 2 goals in 5 games for him. Yeah. So kind of now he's really finding out how big of a job he really has got.
They've got a massive lack of firepower going forward, so it was always expected. Do I think Dyche is going to keep them up? I kind of feel like Dyche's experience might be telling towards the end of the season. Right now, it doesn't look so, but I think there might be 3 worse teams than Everton come the end of the season. Do you feel like he is going to keep them up?
I think their home form is where they're going to win it, where they have to get enough wins at home, where they can really bully teams. I feel like away from home, they're just asking to be beaten at the moment. There's no firepower going the other way, and then at the back, it's like as well as drilled as they are, they can always concede a goal. So I feel like if they can get right back on track at home, they'll be all right. But it's difficult at the moment with no Calvert-Lewin, and it's like where the goal's coming from.
Yeah. All right. Point each for us on that one. Moving on to Liverpool against Wolves. Finished 2-0 to Liverpool. Sim went 2-1. I went 1-1 to Simeon. Games another point on me there. I mean, to be fair, I didn't see much of it. Did you see much of it?
No, obviously we're at the Sheffield game at the time, so didn't see the game. But good win for Liverpool. And they're unbeaten in 4 games now. So fair play, 3 wins out of 4. So although they've in between that, there's a loss to Real Madrid and a 0-0 draw to Crystal Palace. They'll feel like that result puts them back on track. Because before that, they beat Newcastle away, they beat Everton in the Merseyside derby, and they were looking like they were back on form. And then a couple of bad results. So this will be a morale-boosting win for them.
They've actually kept 4 clean sheets in their last 4 Premier League games, which is and since the return of Virgil van Dijk as well. So maybe they are going to be challenging us for the top 4 spaces this year. But look, at the end of those 2 games, it finishes 225 to Sim, 234 to me. Now let's get into our predictions for the weekend. We've got a full roundup of Premier League action, starting off with Manchester City against Newcastle. I've gone for 1-0 to Man City. Sim's gone for 2-1. What are you feeling for this one?
Yeah, I think Newcastle, if they don't win this game, it's 5 in a row that they haven't won the Premier League. So, and I think that'll be 1 in 8. I think 1 win in 8 if they don't win this game. So there is maybe a bit of pressure if they're looking at those Champions League spaces. Maybe a tad bit of pressure going into this game for Newcastle to get a result. I do think with the likes of Wilson, say Maximam and Almiron and the way Man City play, I do think Newcastle can hurt City on the counter. But I think there seems to be something a bit missing at the moment with Newcastle, and I think Man City, after dropping some needless points to Forest, bounced back against Bournemouth with a resounding victory, and I think they'll take that into this game against Newcastle, and I think they'll just about dispatch them. It'll be a close game. I think Newcastle will get a goal, but I think City will shade it 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Newcastle and I'm thinking, where are the goals coming from? They're just not scoring at the moment. Last 6 games only scored 3 goals, but on the flip side of that, Man City seem to be conceding every game at the moment. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, that's for sure. But I think with the way Newcastle play, they'll set up to frustrate Man City. I think it will be a very tight game, but I think Man City will just about get over the line with a 1-0 victory. But I think Newcastle will be up for the fight this weekend, but we'll see how it goes. Both of us going for Man City wins, and let's hope that's the case, because we can't afford any more City slip-ups, that's for sure. But let's move on to the Arsenal game. Arsenal against Bournemouth. Sim and I have gone for the exact same scoreline, said 3-0 to Arsenal. They look back at it. Bournemouth, look, performances have slightly improved for Bournemouth, but going to the Emirates, I just can't see anything in there for them.
Yeah, I think it'll be very, very similar for Arsenal for the Everton game. It'll be just a case of be patient, don't try and force it, and as soon as they get an opening and they can get in the lead, then the floodgates will open again. And I see exactly the same thing happening against Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth they set up in a very similar way to Everton, and again, it's very hard to see where the goals come from. I watched them against Man City last week at home, and I think Man City dispatched them very easily. There was a lot of mistakes at the back, and if they perform like that against Arsenal, it'll be a very similar result. So that's why I've gone for it.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, I can't see Bournemouth getting anything here. Let's move on to Villa against Palace. Sim's gone for 2-1 to Villa. I've gone for 1-1. And what's your thinking between these two?
Yeah, I think Palace, obviously, they're still no win in 4 draws out of the last 5 games, and they're struggling to get wins on the ball despite, results, performances not being terrible. Draws at home to Liverpool, they're tough to beat. But I think Villa, at home, they just got back to winning ways in their last game. They went away at Everton, and that was a big result because they had a few defeats in a row after playing Man City and Arsenal. So morale boosting victory at home. Watkins is on fire. Buendia seems to be getting more involved as well. So I think, even though I think Zaha is back for Palace for this game, I see Palace struggling a bit. So I've gone for Aston Villa just to shade it at home.
Yeah, I mean, if this game was at Selhurst Park, in a weird way, I would have actually favoured Villa a bit more. But they seem to be shocking at Villa Park of late. 1 win in their last 6 at Villa Park. That win coming against a Leeds team, a very out-of-form Leeds team. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, they're frustrating a lot of teams that they're coming up against, but just can't seem to get over the line and get those 3 points. So that's why I've gone for a draw, really. I think both these teams might cancel each other out. Aston Villa, they've conceded 8 goals in their last 2 home games, which is very, very shocking. So I can't really see Villa winning this game, but I couldn't really see Palace winning it either. So I've gone for 1-1 draw. Next up is Brighton against West Ham. Once again, we've gone for the exact same scoreline here, 2-1 to Brighton. And Brighton, I don't know, they seem to be playing really well against the teams where maybe they're underdogs, and then the teams where either like level or slightly below them, they seem to be dropping points to. But I think this West Ham side, they did get back to winning ways with Danny Ings in the side and back on form, so I think they'll get a goal through that avenue. But I think Brighton will be too strong here, so I've gone for 2-1.
Yeah, and they'll be a bit buoyed maybe from getting to a FA Cup quarter-final midweek. And despite their bit in different form of late, I think they do play really good football. And I do think they have the capability of opening up West Ham. West Ham form is maybe starting to turn a bit. I thought they played quite well midweek against Man United and were unlucky not to win that game. And obviously they won their last game as well, 4-0 at home to Forest, and they were really good there. So they'll come into this game thinking they can get a result. But I do think the way Brian De Zerbi has Brighton playing at the moment, it's going to be very difficult for West Ham to kind of keep them out. So I've just gone for Brighton to shade it, 2-1.
Chelsea against Leeds. Both of us gone for the exact same scoreline. Again, 1-0 to Chelsea. And I was thinking about this game, and I was like, Chelsea, 2 wins in their last 17 or whatever it is. Leeds can't seem to get over the line either. It's going to be, I think this is probably like the 2 most out of form teams facing each other in the league, well, apart from Southampton. So I think this is going to be a terrible game of football, but I actually do think Chelsea will finally get over the line and win a game.
Yeah, come on. They can't. They lost at home to Southampton. They can't keep getting these results the whole season. Surely that's a turnaround at some point. All Chelsea fans will tell you there's no chance they're winning this game. They've won 2 in 17. It ain't going to change. Exactly. And I think Leeds at the moment, I know they've got a great win against home Southampton, although they only trickled over the line, got a late winner, 1-1-0. I think that Chelsea, this is a massive game for Potter and his reign, and I think he will come to an unconvincing 1-0 win. And whether that'll probably be enough to keep him in a job for a bit more, but whether that'll be enough to really turn things around at Chelsea, we'll have to wait and see. But I think this is a massive game for Potter, and I think they're just going to sneak it.
Next up, Wolves, Tottenham. Sim's gone for 2-0 to Spurs. I've gone for 1-0 to Spurs. and tell me why.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a bit of a battle. I think we're going to go back to the same team that beat West Ham and Chelsea a week ago, and I think we're going to hopefully have the right attitude rather than we did at Sheffield. I think we're going to as well have Sonny on the bench, so I do think hopefully we kind of ride the storm from Wolves when tire them out a bit, maybe get in the lead, and then Sonny can come on and seal the victory. So I've just gone for Tottenham to get the 2-0 win, but we have to have a better attitude than we did in midweek.
Oh, that goes without saying, really. That attitude in midweek absolutely stank the place out at Bramall Lane. And I think getting back Romero back in the side, Emerson back in the side, and Harry Kane back in the starting lineup as well, and Dejan Kulusevski, I think the attitude will be better. And the defensive solidity that we have seen prior to that game at Bramall Lane, I think will be back. I think we'll be setting up to stifle Wolves and hitting them when we can, and I think that will play into the hands of Spurs during the game as well. So I've gone for 1-0 to Spurs. Sim's gone for 2-0. Moving on to Southampton, Leicester. Both of us gone for quite a lot of goals. Sim's gone for 2-1 to Leicester. I've gone for 3-2 to Leicester. And when these two teams play each other, there always is a lot of goals. 2-1 to Southampton last time out, 4-1 to Leicester the time before that, 2-2 the time before that. So there is usually a lot of goals, two open sides facing each other, two sides on awful form, really. And you thought that maybe when Leicester, just before the World Cup, they seem to be turning it around. But after that, since the return of football, they have been poor, to be honest, apart from
one game,
the one game against us. Southampton on the other side, sitting bottom of the league. They did win out at Chelsea, but that doesn't seem to have turned around their form. They've lost to Leeds and Grimsby since then. So I think it will be an interesting game and a good game of football to watch. But I think Leicester will win the game 3-2. I
agree. And I think Maddison is back as well this weekend. So that will be a massive boost for them. And they want a reaction to going out to Blackburn in midweek. Although the closer they get to, they're only 3 points at the moment above the relegation zone. So of course that will be in their mind. But I do think when things do click for Leicester, they can be a very good attacking team. So I've gone for them to get a few goals. From Southampton's point of view, look, they need to start winning games. They beat Chelsea, but then they followed that with a loss to Leeds in a massive game where it was a must-not-lose game, and they did. They're now 4 points adrift of Leeds, who are in 17th, and the games are ticking away. There's only 14 more games for them to save themselves. So if they don't start winning games soon, they're obviously in big trouble already, but they could be obviously facing relegation. So I think from Southampton's point of view, they have to go out and try and win this game. They need the 3 points. A draw doesn't help them at this point. So I do see it being a very open game, but I think Leicester have just the more potent players right now, so I've gone for them to edge it.
All right, next up, Nottingham Forest against Everton. Sim's gone for 0-0. I've gone for 2-0. Why 0-0?
I think that Forest prefer to counter-attack teams. They prefer to play against teams who like to dominate, and then they can use the likes of Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson to exploit the space in behind. And that's what they've built their good form on, being very solid defensively and picking their moments. I remember against Leeds not so long ago at home, they just had one good moment of quality and they won the game 1-0. I think Everton, though, they'll be the same in going into this game. They'll after being pummeled by Arsenal, they'll want to keep things tight, make sure they're not conceding any easy goals. But they don't really have the attacking talent to seriously hurt Forest, in my opinion. So I just see this being a stalemate. I see this being two teams who are must not lose first going into this game, and I think that attitude will seep into the results. So I've gone for 0-0.
Yeah, I've gone for Forest to win at 2-0 here. I think that Everton's away form has been absolutely tragic, and it's not just the results, it's the performances as well. Nottingham Forest, on the flip side, have been really good at home since September, really. I think unbeaten still in the league since then. Big teams have come there and failed to get a result. Case in point, Man City last week or 2 weeks ago. And I think that Forest will just be a bit too strong, especially with the home crowd behind them in this game. So I've gone for 2-0 to Nottingham Forest. Next up is the big derby. Manchester United go to Anfield, face Liverpool. Sim's gone for 2-2 this game. I've gone for 2-1 to Man United. And Man United have not won at Anfield for a very, very long time. And I think it is all going to change this weekend. The last time that they won there is 2016, which is crazy. But I genuinely think it all changed this weekend. The feeling around Man United is that they're playing really good football at the moment. Rashford is on firing form, best form of his career, probably the form player in the Premier League. Liverpool, on the other hand, I mean, they are getting results and they haven't conceded in their last 4 games, but I still haven't been totally convinced by them. And I think the way the run of these two teams are going, I much more fancy Manchester United than Liverpool.
I've gone for a high-scoring draw. I think I think Liverpool have improved a bit of late in terms of their performance level. I actually think Man United are a bit less convincing away from home than they are at home. They did beat Leeds last time out, but they were very lucky to get all 3 points in that game. They lost 3-2 to Arsenal, and they also away from home they drew with Palace not so long ago. So I do think that they're a bit less convincing away from home, albeit they're still scoring goals. I think Liverpool at home, they were 2-0 up against obviously Real Madrid before capitulating, but they have had some good results of late at home to Everton and at home to Wolves last time out in 2 big wins. I do think they, with Van Dijk back as well, they are starting to get back to better levels, and the likes of Jota as well back in the forward line. I think they've got a lot of talent in the forward line now, so I can see it being a Desmond.
All right, next up is Brentford against Fulham. Sim's gone for 1-0 to Brentford. I've gone for 1-1 in this game. And yeah, tell me why.
I just think Brentford at home are very strong. I know they obviously got that last minute equaliser against who was against Palace last time out, even though Palace could have won that. It was the last minute, which keeps their unbeaten run at home going, ticking over nicely. And I think Fulham, as much as they're very solid, I think that the way Brentford play is quite suited to playing against Fulham. And I see this being a very close game. I was either 0-0 or a 1-0 victory either way, and I just sneaked it for Brentford. And maybe Tony as well, with all these allegations and things that are the charges. I think he's going to play on the weekend, and maybe he'll have something to say before a ban comes in. So I've just gone for 1-0 Brentford.
Something to say? What, like a bet?
Yeah, exactly.
Is he going to bet on 1-0 Brentford?
He'll bet on himself to score before he goes, yeah.
No, I've gone for 1-1. The way I'm looking at Fulham at the moment, I think they surprise people every week with the way they perform, with the way they play, with the results they're getting. Manor Solomon, 4 goals in his last 4 games, and really special goals as well. He really is a man on form. Brentford, on the other hand, they also on really good form since the return of football after the World Cup. They have drawn their last 2 games. One of them a really impressive draw at Arsenal. The other one not so impressive at home to Crystal Palace. And I've got a feeling it's just going to be 2 teams really thinking they can win this game, and they might just cancel each other out. So I've gone for 1-1, and Brentford have drawn quite a few recently, so I couldn't really split them. So I've gone for 1-1. Next up is the Star Men. Both of us going for Leicester players. Sim has gone for Harvey Barnes, and I have gone for Kelechi Iheanacho. So Iheanacho kind of the man on form at the moment, but Harvey Barnes also a man on, well, kind of on form.
Yeah, he scored a few goals. Obviously, last time against Spurs, he was threatening us big time. And I do think he's their most informed player right now. I thought against Arsenal, he was their best player, even though he wasn't managed to do much. Against Blackburn in midweek, he got a good assist for Iheanacho. And I think Harvey Barnes is good for goal contribution in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Kelechi Iheanacho has really turned it on in the last 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, how many goals? He's got 4 goals in his last 6 games, a couple of assists in there as well. So I'm backing him to do it against a fragile Southampton back line. But that is our Premier League predictions this week. Those are our star man. I would like to know what your predictions are, who you think is going to come out on top between me and Sim, and who your star man is this weekend. Thank you everyone for watching. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always,
come on you Spurs.